Good afternoon, 3rd of September 2023. You're watching Labor Matters right here on KBN TV, 2790 TV, 27 Gold TV, 102 Topstar, and live on our Facebook page, which is KBN TV. I am your host, Patricia Shlam. Today we're looking at an interesting topic, which is salaries and payroll management. If you have any questions, contributions or concerns, there's a number to write on your TV screen. Please do drop us a text message. Don't call, just drop us a text message. And as usual in the studio, I am with Mr. Owen Kabanda. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Patricia. How are you doing?
I'm okay. How are you doing?
Very, very good, and glad to be here today.
Amazing. Mr. Kabanda, today will be joined by Mr. Pod Masama, who is HR and Payroll consultant, and he loves sharing various human resource matters on his social platforms. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you doing?
I'm okay. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. I'm glad to be here.
Amazing. We are glad to have you on Labor Matters today.
Thank you very much.
Amazing. Mr. Kabanda, today we are looking at an interesting topic. And I must make mention that last week we did talk about an interesting topic, and our viewers did send in questions and contributions. But before we talk about our topic of discussion for today, would you maybe highlight us on what we discussed last week a little bit before we talk about our topic of discussion?
Yes, so really last week we were looking at the policies and procedures and why it is important for the company to have the policies and procedures in place, because it really helps the business to know what should be done at each particular time, but also for the employees also to understand what they should follow in terms of the steps they should follow. Like we mentioned, if it is a salary advance, what should the person do? If they have a funeral, what steps should they follow? Whatever it is that happens to an employee, what steps should they be following? That is the importance of having these policies and procedures in place. And we also emphasize the aspect of making sure that the policies that are being developed in a company, they are in line with the employment laws of the country, and also that the policies are made in such a way that, again, they allow for some flexibility, but not allowing for abuse. And this is a fine line that has to be drawn. It's not an easy thing, and that's why we encourage people to go to professionals who can help them to craft policies which allow them not to be too rigid to a point where something is happening and someone cannot even use their common sense because they say, no, our policy doesn't allow. So it's a matter of finding that fine balance between having a policy that allows for the company to operate in a manner that it should be doing in line with the law and some HR best practices.
And today we're talking about salaries and payroll management.
Yeah.
Are there any policies or procedures that has to be undertaken, or do we have an important part of policies and procedures when it comes to payroll management?
Definitely. Like we said, every aspect of managing staff, from the time you're planning for the employees to the time you're hiring them, how you keep them, the salaries and the benefits you give them during the period they're working, to performance management, training and development, all the way to the period you separate with an employee. There have to be policies that guide. And even in this particular case, when it comes to salaries and payroll management, there have to be policies that guide the institution and HR really on what the company will be doing. So in terms of salaries, for instance, there will be policies around what will be the entry salaries that the company can pay, or is it on the mid, or is it at the highest level? There will be policies around when will the salaries be paid in the institution. And again, these have to be aligned with the law. There will be policies and procedures around what then, even the salary components, they have to be broken down. The company, by having those policies, it allows HR not to be all over the place. Meaning that if in your company, your policy says, we shall pay this basic, we shall pay housing, or we shall provide housing. So those things will be made in line with what the company can actually also afford, but in line with the law. So even the salaries and what the company will really pay will be drawn into the policy. So it is important that those policies are there. The policies also even guide you on who manages the policy and who approves even the salaries. so that it's not everybody who just wakes up and say, today I'm a imagine you're in a company where anybody can wake up and increase salaries. You can have a lot of chaos. So that's why it's important to have these policies in place.
Well explained, Mr. Kabanda. Coming to you, Mr. Masama, maybe you can explain to us the process of understanding salaries within a payroll system.
Okay, thank you very much. When it comes to a salary, people just think about what goes into the bank account. Okay? But when you look at the salary, of course, there is this total package which the employer will give you. But the unfortunate part is that money is not all yours.
Yeah.
Okay? When it comes to the salary, we have various stakeholders that are interested in your money. Okay?
Yeah.
There's the ZRI component there, which is mandatory. The employers have been mandated to make a deduction from the employees and remit to ZRI. And for those employees that are still eligible for NAPSA, okay, if they haven't retired from NAPSA, you should still be able to deduct. There's a component for NAPSA. Okay, there's also personal levy, though it's just twice a year.
Yeah.
This money which is payable to the council is also deductible. But again, when you come to the Employment Code Act 2019 in section 68, the employer again has been mandated to deduct some authorized deductions from the employee. Other than those statutory ones, there could be others such as salary advance and union contributions if an employee is a union member, as well as a pension scheme in case there's any pension fund management in place. So you find that really, and as much as you work hard, that's not all your money. Okay, those are some of the salary components of the salaries, and in addition to that, yes, there's this salary which we are talking about, but there are also other stakeholders that are interested in your salary. Thank you very much.
Mr. Kabanda, coming to you, what are some of the bases for paying salaries?
Yeah, so it's really important that employees and employers understand. We know there is a lot of, I don't know, different opinions where people, even before they start work, before they report for work, they still want to get paid. No, I signed the contract. No. There is a basis for paying a salary. When you look at employment itself, let's go to section 3 of the employment code. It really allows you to understand what employment itself is. The employee is entering, they sign a contract that they will give a service, and in return for that service, they get a wage or a salary in this case. On the other end, the employer is also signing that contract and committing that when they receive this service from the employee, the employer is going to pay. They have also made a commitment. So it's not when, and we tell this even during trainings to managers, you're not doing anybody a favor. The person worked, pay. It's not like I can choose not to pay you. No, as long as there's proof that the person actually worked, because of that employment relationship, and it's contractual and it's also in the law, the person needs to be paid. And now and this is really for the employees. When you look at the basis, there are two things. You can be paid, for instance, for delivering on a task that is on performance, or you finish a project or whatever it is, depending on how your contracts are framed. This is on delivery on output. Sometimes, and many times actually, you find that payments are based on time. And Mr. Masama will be talking shortly about payroll systems, for instance. You will find that most of the systems we have around, the payroll systems, they are linked to time. And that's why you find that at offices, there's some offices that will have those on the door where you put your finger, or they have a card, you swipe, and then it registers that you have reported for it. And that's why they tell you report before 8, or depending on your company. In some cases, If it is, for instance, in construction, they'll have the time sheets or time cards. So the supervisor will be signing that John Banda reported today, and they take note of every day that they have worked. And because the payments are made on how many times you are actually reported. And this is very, very important for both employers and employees to understand, because the law, remember, under Section 3, it specifies that the employee has to be available. Now, that being available, the assumption is that the employee is also going to be working, because remember, under the same section, it says the employee has to work under the direction and control of the employer. So the employer is expected to give the employee work to do during that time they report for work. So that's why even the payments that we're talking about, they will be based on the time the person works, and this also marries with even issues around overtime. So for instance, the law specifies that one can work for 8 hours in a day, and if you do, let's say, more than 48 hours in a week, the employer will pay overtime or give you maybe compensatory time off, or whatever arrangements are made there. The issue there is that your reporting is now equivalent to the amount of salary you get. And that's why if in a month you have only worked for 10 days, you can't expect to get paid for a full month. And these are things also that happen. Someone has reported maybe just at the very end of the month, but they still want to get paid, especially wakuchipata. So you can only get paid that for the days you have worked for, and that is very, very important that things are made clear to the employee, especially at the beginning.
Mr. Kabanda, so you're trying to tell us that salaries are based on attendance of an employee?
Exactly, and like we've said, where salaries are going to be paid based just on output, even the systems will be configured like that, where it will be based on your milestone. You reach this level, and that has to also be very clear in the contract. Because if you have not made things clear, then confusion starts. We know there are, for instance, in some places where they will say, okay, we'll give you, they call it each Congo, and we'll give you, have to finish that. If you said the payment is purely just on the output, then you don't then attach it to the time. So if person you said you are going to dig 10 holes and you get paid, it's that time that you have given him. So if the person, instead of saying, if the person in a month would finish the digging of those holes you gave them in 20 days, pay them, because you only agreed to pay them just for the holes. But then the issue is you have to balance the two, because especially if you're going to use payroll systems, like we have said, most of the payroll systems are configured to recognize time. And that's why even where you add the performance component, you have to understand how they are going to work in a day, in a week, or in a month, so that there is no confusion. But really, most of the times, most of the systems are configured to recognize time. And that part is really extremely important to explain. And that's why you find that sometimes there are even confusions where someone was just reporting and they were not clocking in. For companies that really take these matters very serious, you find the person, you haven't received the full salary. Oh, what happened? But I came. No, but you are not clocking in. There's something missing there. So it's important that the employees understand what the company uses in terms of monitoring their work and their attendance.
Amazing. Yeah. Mr. Masama, employees always wait for paydays, just waiting for me to get my salary and whatnot. But we have a specific day. When is payday?
Thank you very much. It's unfortunate that in some companies, payday is a secret. Okay, payday, it has to be known by everyone. But when we look at Section 66 of the Employment Code Act, has given different intervals for paydays. So a payday could be any day, provided it's an interval of 30 days. If you have agreed that you'll be paid after every 30 days, if your payday is 10th, let it be the 10th. If your payday is 25th, let it be 25th. If your payday is 20th, let it be 20th. Okay? And if it's bi-weekly, again you can agree that you'll be getting paid after every 14 days, meaning a worker is expectant, you know. When you are waiting for your salary, you are also expectant and you make commitments. And if you agree that it will be every week, let it be every week. The whole idea is for the employer to honor the payday. And if the employer doesn't honor the payday, there are some repercussions. In Section 79 of the Employment Code Act, there are some repercussions there if the employer doesn't honor, because you see that the only allowable number of days which the salaries can be late is 5 days. Okay? But if you make people to work, and like Mr. Kabanda was saying, you just decide not to pay them, okay, due to one reason or another, without justifiable reason, you decide not to pay the salaries. There are repercussions in Section 79. So the payday, it could be any day. What matters is consistency in the intervals.
Amazing. So before I get to Mr. Kabanda, does the payday has any effects when it comes to payroll process?
Actually, the payday, thank you very much. Actually, the payday has a lot of effect when it comes to payroll process. Remember when we started, Mr. Kabanda was talking about having what you call a payroll management policy or a payroll administration policy. That payroll administration policy, it will have various components. And one of the components is the payday. And before you actually arrive on the payday, there is some background work which needs to be done. We need to know who worked overtime, who was absent, who was on leave, who was sick. Do we have new employees? Do we have people who have been promoted? Do we have people who have resigned, people who have been dismissed? So there is a lot of background work which takes place. So meaning we need to have a cutoff date. If our payday, for example, is 25th, people who are in the payroll section, in the administration section, the payroll administration section, they will say probably, according to your policy, if the cutoff date is 20th, it means that if someone joins you on 21st, it means for that month they won't get paid. Why? Because they joined after the cutoff date. Yeah. So the cutoff date plays a very, very important role when it comes to the payday. And beyond that, there are other components which are there. You know, there are approval processes. Okay? For example, if someone's salary has to be increased according to the same payroll policy, what are some of the steps that needs to be followed? So for you to exhaust all those processes, you really need to adhere to the cutoff date. Thank you very much.
Amazing. If you're just joining us, you're watching Labor Matters on KBN TV. For any questions, concerns, or contributions, please use the number which is right on your TV screen. Don't call us, just drop us a text. Mr. Kabanda, coming to you.
Yes.
There are some debates when it comes to HR and finance department, like who should handle or run the payroll. So what is your thought about this? Who is responsible for the payroll? Is it the HR department or it's the finance department?
Yeah, those debates have been there for a long time, and it's really, and we call them unnecessary debates at some point. What we think is it's a matter of looking at your whole setup of the institution. How big is your company really? And if you're a small company, who can do what? If you're a big company, who can do what? Now, there are certain processes that can be done. So, and again, this is where we say it's a matter of policy. In institutions, in many institutions, HR runs with a payroll. Why is that the case? Like what Mr. Masama was saying, there are all those things that are changing. The people are being promoted, the people are being hired. It's not finance who knows who came into this company. It's not finance who knows who was promoted or who has been terminated. They might receive letters there. You see, when you do a letter, there's a CC at the bottom there. But they're in CC. The key issue is there's someone who is actually playing a role in all these with the contracts and everything. And that's why if you go to many of the companies that are established, what they do, you're going to have the HR department. And the HR's role now is to look at, for instance, you have done your recruitments. When you do your recruitments, you need as HR now to sit down and look and compile all the documentation. And that's why we say these things, and we talk about HR being professionals. It's not just anybody because they can photocopy, so now they can be HR. If you're talking, the HR people, they need to understand what it is that they have to do. And that's why even now there's a law that they have to be practitioners, because there is training that they have to undertake to that effect. So when it comes to the payroll, the HR has to sit down and look at the contracts first of all. And when they get the contracts, they prepare everything, they put together the engagement forms. Now, when we look at the engagement forms, we are looking at every document that that new employee signs, including provision of their NAPSA numbers, their bank accounts, and all those things. So the HR will sit down and put together all that documentation. And then when it's time for the payroll, for instance, they can submit all those things to the finance department, and they have to have gotten all the necessary approvals and all those kind of things. So if this debate really, it becomes quite unnecessary. It's a matter of just seeing what is it that needs to be done. HR can compile everything. It's HR who should put together who has been promoted. The letters have to be there. Samazama will talk about some of these details when you're running a payroll, for instance. You need to have all those things in place. Who has been promoted? Where is the letter? Who has been demoted? Where is the letter? Who has been fired? Where is the letter? Or any other things that have to go into the payroll. Then give finance, and finance, like they pay any other supplier of goods and services, they can then look at those documents, then they pay. In other companies, of course, as we said, depending on the setup, finance could actually run with those things. But one of the things we have to emphasize is whoever runs with the payroll, there are key things that we emphasize they should fully understand. And that means they should first of all understand the provisions of the law. Because on the payroll system, they need to see what is sitting on the system as basic, the deductions that I'm making, how much are they deducting for NAPSA? Mr. Masama was talking about these, the stakeholders who are interested in your salary as an employee. The person who is running with that payroll, they need to know what exactly they are doing. What is the law saying about what can be deducted? What is the percentage for NAPSA, percentage for NEMA, and is it coming from the gross pay or is it being deducted on the basic pay? The skills levy and all those things, that's why you have to understand the law. So whether you're in HR or you're in finance, you have to understand. Or for our colleagues who are small and medium enterprises, they also have to understand or get a consultant to help them. That is understanding the law. They have to understand some basic mathematics really, or numerical skills, because there are sometimes those basic calculations you have to do. Even if you are punching in Excel, you really have to see, is it giving you the correct things? If you are using the system, is it also churning out the correct things? So those skills and that knowledge is very important. And just also this ability to pay attention to detail. The payroll is one of the most sensitive areas in HR, because, and I will give you an example. When I was with the Motor Angel, during the rehabilitation of the Greatest Road, and we had over 1,600 employees. Now we have these colleagues. Some they have gone to school. You are dealing with people who have not been to school. You are dealing with also with engineers, people with masters. But let's talk about the colleagues at the bottom level. You just make one change, just a way, it becomes a huge challenge. Just for you, at the time my colleagues Kennedy, Munkondi and the team, they say, we have a problem. What is the problem? It is just because the system is rounding off these ingwes. So just paying attention to those small things become very critical in the way you run the payroll. So really, HR could run with the payroll, but where need be, finance could come in, but we always encourage that payrolls are run by HR because of that aspect of understanding and they are the ones dealing with employees all the time.
The debate is over now. I believe. Mr. Masama, coming to you. Would love to find out how are employees added and removed from the payroll system, and are there any deadlines?
Thank you very much. Probably before I come to your question, maybe I can just add on to the debate, like Mr. Kabanda was sharing. When it comes to payroll, actually, it's a full human resource management function. Mm-hmm. Okay, but depending on the size of an organization, you find that it's a shared responsibility. Why? Because of the various skill sets that are required. Okay, probably look at the government. How many employees do they have? Does HR have all the necessary skills to run the systems? Okay, and like we had, accounts is a paying agent. So even them, they have an interest. They want to make sure the salaries are paid to the employees. Yeah. Accounts can come in and pay NIMA. Accounts can come in and pay ZRI. But all these other nitty-gritties, it's an HR function. I remember during one of the trainings, we had one human resource manager who said, accountants just punch. Now, what is it that accountants punch, which as human resource we cannot punch? Yeah. Okay? So you find certain organizations, full-fledged organizations, that have invested a lot in training. You find HR are doing the complete cycle of the payroll. Now, coming to addition of an employee on the payroll, again, I will emphasize again that when it comes to payroll, there are different stakeholders, okay? And just to echo what Mr. Kabanda said, payroll has to be 100% correct. Yeah. The moment you make a mistake, just know that one of the stakeholders will suffer. And luckily enough, the employees, when they spot the mistake, they come back running to you.
Very fast.
Now, what of the employer? Can you imagine a scenario where you have overpaid employees? Some employees will keep quiet, some will think, oh, probably we have a bonus, you know.
It's a bonus.
Yeah, okay. So, and again, still talking about the employer, you find that the people who made mistakes when it comes to these ZRI, NAPSA penalties, those people have left the company already. Yeah. And it's the employer who bear the burden of paying all those penalties. So it's up to the employer to make sure that they invest in training for their staff, for quality assurance. Mm-hmm. Yeah, these other different countries, in South Africa, in the United Kingdom, in the United States, they have different associations just to make sure that they have quality staff managing payroll. Okay, there are even degrees in payroll management. Okay, but now, when it comes to adding an employee, when you are managing the payroll, you don't do anything without the authorized source data. Yeah. Okay? What guides what you're going to do on the payroll is the source data that has been authorized. So if you are to add a new employee, okay, make sure that you have the necessary authorization. Other than the employment contract, is there any internal documentation that has been completed? Okay, depending either you're using a manual system or you're using a payroll system, but the whole idea is that there has to be some authorized source data. Why? Because you will be answerable. Okay? In case we find 100 employees on the payroll, you have to take ownership of those 100 employees. When we ask you that, where did this employee come from?
I don't know.
I don't know. Okay, when auditors come to find out who added this employee, no, it's me. Who authorized you to add this employee? Okay, you have to be accountable, you have to take ownership. If there is no proper controls, if there are no proper controls, that's where we say we feel sorry for the employer. We have heard of stories with people adding their wives on company payrolls. Mm-hmm. Why? Because there are no proper controls. People putting their relatives on their payrolls. Why? Because there are no proper controls. And actually, in my case, when I'm training payroll practitioners when it comes to payroll, I say in an event where there are no proper controls, payroll becomes an open check. It just depends on how much you are going to put on that figure. Okay. Thank you very much.
Amazing, Mr. Kabanda. Maybe you can also adapt to what Mr. Masamaza said. When it comes to the importance of explaining to employees on the issues of salaries and payroll matters.
Yeah, really, like what Mr. Masamaza was saying, really, this payroll thing is a huge thing, and even the aspects of how people will be added even to the payroll, what is required, all these things also need to be explained even to the employees, apart from the ones who are managing the payroll. Because we find sometimes you are hiring a person, you tell them, we need a bank account. Oh, yeah, boss, what do you mean you will see what you do? Because now you are not going to get paid. Here in this place, you don't pay over, what you call it, over the counter. Mm-hmm. So it's really important that HR takes time to explain things to the employees, because these are the things that create a lot of problems. Mm-hmm. And again, where HR does not is not in a capacity, and this is why with Mr. Masama we are talking about training. Mm-hmm. If you know you don't have the capacity to handle certain things, mm-hmm. go for the training. For HR practitioners, we encourage them to have, we call it a triangle in our model, like 3 things. Understand psychology or people management, understand the law, and understand the business and financials, which is where we are talking about the payroll. The 3 things you need to run with them. Mm-hmm. So when employees have been hired, you need to be in a space where you can face them, whether it's a group or it's one-on-one, mm-hmm. explain to them. Especially, for those with degrees and masters and so on, they could maybe read the documents on their own. But even them, they are not always conversant with certain terminologies. So it's important that you help them, induct them. Tell them, now that you have come, what do we need from you? You was talking about authority documents. What documents do we actually need from you for us to add you on the payroll? There will be a contract, there will be those engagement forms we talked about, which clearly, on certain declarations, if you don't have them, maybe you will not be added to the payroll. Then on this payroll, what will be the deductions? So you can have your salary is 5,000, mm-hmm. or your salary is, if your salary is 5,000, are you walking home with that 5,000? Help them to understand that maybe that 5,000 will not be 5,000. If the person is getting 1,700, they will go and make a budget. Madam, apamanje tengani na kuku. You go and get chickens all over the place because I have a 1,700. Maybe that 1,700 is not what is coming. So you need to help them. And there are also even issues around the banks. I remember having some problems with our employees, because the bank, for us, we just brought people to the bank, open accounts, but they had not explained in detail, because they were supposed to take the employees through the process in terms of how much they were going to deduct and according to the type of account the employees opened. People were excited, they opened certain accounts which were serious deductions. And at the end, when salaries were paid, no. But you bear drama. So, but it's actually not from the employer side. Mm-hmm. And that's why having time to explain to employees, it becomes extremely important, so that you're now creating this industrial harmony we are talking about. Even when Mr. Masama was talking about the cut-off dates, mm-hmm. those things need to be in a place where you explain to the people. Mm-hmm. Because someone will start work, your cut-off date was on the 20th, they start on the 25th, mm-hmm. they are seeing everybody getting paid. Because you are quiet, you never said anything, the person is waiting. And in many cases, because they are starting work at that point, they are broke. They are looking for money. And they are hoping now they'll have some transport, they can sort out their bills. Some even think they could be paid even in advance. So it's important that as HR or the business owner, if you don't have an HR person in place, you actually take time to explain those things to the employees so that they understand. If you report on such and such a date, what you'll be paid is this. And even when, like for the cut-off dates which you were talking about, if you along the way you are working, for instance, in some companies they will pay you, you're getting your salary on the 25th, or you get paid on the 21st, whichever day you get paid, but they are paying you a full salary for the month. What it means is, if for instance you stop along the way, maybe on the 20, you resign, you got paid on 21st, you resign on 25th, of course the company will have to deduct the other days you have not worked. Remember when we started the discussion, we said you are paid for the days worked. So if you haven't worked, Baba, why do you still want to get paid for those other? So that money will be deducted at the time of paying terminal benefits. Remember I was talking about the statutory deductions from NAPS and so on, but there's also other authorized deductions. In this case, if you didn't work for it, it will be deducted. So really explaining things to employees become important, and where the employer does not know or the HR doesn't know, they are free to then get additional support.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Mr. Masama, coming to you, I know Mr. Kabanda has briefly highlighted us on the deductions part, but I would also want to find out how salary deductions made on the payroll and how these can be handled, or maybe you can also talk about the importance of having pay slips.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe just to add on again from the previous question Mr. Kabanda was discussing, when it comes to explanation of the conditions of employment to the employee, it's very, very key. Okay? And remember, I was talking about stakeholders.
Yeah.
Okay, when it comes to payroll, even the employee is a stakeholder. And for you, the HR manager, your customer, your very, very important stakeholder, the most important one, the reason why you are employed is the employee. Okay? You are employed because there are 100 employees. If there are 5 employees, are you going to be employed? No. Okay? So you have to invest a lot in learning. Okay? And in case you didn't know, employees are always suspicious that
They're stealing our money.
HR is stealing from them, or people who do the payroll, they are stealing from them. Why? Because of lack of proper explanations.
Yeah.
Okay, so explaining to the employees is key. Like he said, when you are engaging a new employee, are you just going to explain to the employee the gross, or you are also going to explain to them the net pay? Okay? And when it comes to payroll, I say you don't use the English to explain. You use numbers. Okay? That's how come we encourage those people who manage payrolls. If you have a larger number of employees, can you have a whiteboard in your office and a marker where you can explain everything mathematically? Yeah. Okay? When it comes to numbers, it's not the English, but it's the calculations. Okay.
Just wait until money comes to your
account. No, just
then
wait.
You know the net pay.
Okay. So you need all those necessary skills to make sure that even at the point of engagement, the employee is very much aware of what will go in the bank account. Okay, now coming to deductions, Section 68 of the Employment Code Act, again, like I said earlier on, it has mandated the employer to make certain deductions from the employee. Okay, one of them which is the pay-as-you-earn, of course the NAPSA, the NIMA, and the employees should also know that other than these non-deductions, the employer also makes certain contributions on behalf of the employee. For example, when it comes to NAPSA, the employer also makes a submission. Even when it comes to NIMA, the employer also makes a submission. And the employer also makes a submission which is annual, which is workers' compensation. For each employee, and depending on the business classifications, there are various percentages for workers' compensation. But the key thing, okay, the key thing when it comes to deductions from the employee, they have to be authorized deductions. Okay, again, Section 69 of the Employment Code Act is prohibiting. Okay, it doesn't allow to just wake up and deduct from an employee. Even if it's damage to company property, the law has guided that you should only arrive at that decision after subjecting the employee to a disciplinary hearing. You don't just say that, okay, you have damaged this property, it's worth 100,000, we are going to deduct 100,000 from you.
No.
There are some guidelines which have to be followed, and the law has said a reasonable amount. Okay?
Yeah.
So even if an employee, you find employees owing each other, they drag each other to HR, no, this one owes me money, can you deduct from him? Do you go ahead and do that?
Yeah.
No. Okay? Because those are unauthorized like he is saying, probably the landlord will now say, now let me follow him at work.
Yeah.
Okay? This tenant hasn't been paying me, can you deduct from the salary? Okay? Even the wife, okay? Even the wife cannot go follow the employee at work, that since he's not buying food at home, we don't know where he takes the money. Can you deduct every month and bring it to us? It doesn't work like that. The employee has to consent because that's his money. Okay? That's his sweat. No one is allowed to play around with my income. That's how come, even when it comes to, is it section 70 of the Employment Code Act, you shouldn't limit the employee when it comes to disposing off of their money. You cannot say, now, no, this money is for minimum. Every month I'll be sharing the money with you. Part of it I give it to your wife, part of it we give it to you. No, it doesn't work like that.
Amazing.
So all the deductions have to be authorized.
Well explained. Thank you very much. Mr. Kabanda, maybe you can also talk about should businesses maintain records for payroll? Because I believe maybe there's some people who don't even have records when it comes to payroll.
Yeah.
The importance of keeping records.
Yeah, it's really important. And again, these records will also even show you what exactly was deducted. But also even an emphasis on these deductions that Mr. Masama was talking about. You really need to make sure that you understand what the law says. And this is an emphasis to HR practitioners. Because sometimes you find that practitioners are using emotions or personal experiences. No, me and personal convictions. I know what men are doing. Especially we deal with so many different people. Now I know men are irresponsible, so he's just taking money somewhere. Or no, I know this woman has been also. No. You cannot start going into personal lives of people. So, in as much as you have all the nice, very good intentions as HR or the owner of the business, if you don't have an HR, you cannot start making deductions which are not allowable in the law. So you always have to do things within the confines of the law. And that's why we are emphasizing read the law and understand what you can do. The best you can do, yes, if you see that some employees are having a challenge in how they are managing their finances, that's why we have consultants, co-consultants to come and do a training for them. What you are basically giving them is information on how they manage it. You are not limiting. It's not for you to start saying, no, in drama, because you have been failing. No. And separate these things. If indeed the person is having challenges managing their finances and it is bringing embarrassment to the employer, now you have a problem. That employee now can be charged for bringing embarrassment for dragging the name of the company. Because some of these people, they tell their wives or whoever they owe, no, in fact, we are a company 3 months. We haven't been getting paid. You know, the chap was paid a long time ago. He ate the money. Even this, we see a lot of things in this world. But if such things happen, when things of that nature happen, that employee should be charged for that, not that he's not taking money home. It's the embarrassment he brings. But again, this is why we say ensure also that you have proper disciplinary codes in place. But really, train the employees, bring consultants on board to help, or the HR if they can do it. Coming to the aspects around the records, like what Mr. Masama was saying, once you run your payroll, you also have pay slips. Those pay slips, you send them to the employees or print them. In some companies, they print But again, that's also a lot of expense. So sometimes it's advisable you have email addresses, you send them to the email addresses. And that's why we're also emphasizing that you need to start, companies need to start investing in systems. There are a lot of companies now that provide these payroll systems. So bring on board credible systems where you also know that you receive support from the team that installs the system. So that now you can have those records being kept online and you can print where you need to. It's also important that you have proof of payment being made, because employees at some point may come back and claim that they never got paid. That happens. Sometimes someone goes, they go to drink, they have finished the money, the next thing they are hallucinating that they never got paid. Have your documents there, because it also allows the company, even when auditors come, remember sometimes, or not even sometimes, especially for big companies, auditors do come. Even for us in HR, we do HR audits. When we are checking, we need to see where you are actually paying the people. And if you are paying the people, when were the people getting paid? And that's why information relating to payroll needs to be kept, so that you can always verify, you can always get back to that information. Sometimes it's when the court's coming, where the employee has now sued the company, you can go and get that document and show, hey, Baba, this is what was paid, and these are the deductions.
Amazing, well explained. Because of time, Mr. Masama, maybe just under a minute, are there any other critical aspects of payroll management that businesses should be aware of?
Okay, thank you very much. One of the critical components is just in addition to what he was talking about. Record keeping is key. I've seen a lot of HR professionals, accountants running around. You know, we have an audit, okay? As a payroll administrator, you have to know exactly what NAPSA auditors are looking for, what ZRI auditors are looking for. In case of workers' compensation, even just internal audit or any sort of audit, you have to know exactly. We know how smart you are depending on what you have kept on record. You may have all these skills, good people skills, okay? You can have legal knowledge, but what do you keep? What do you maintain? We have scenarios whereby someone used to manage the payroll. We are looking for pay slips. There is no record. We can't trace any record, okay? And to help you with all these aspects of the payroll software management is the key, okay? And I can assure you, those people who try to run around with Microsoft Excel, those who try to run around with manual, they make a lot of mistakes, okay? According to my experience, manual payrolls in Microsoft Excel, people share spreadsheets, you don't even know who put in formulas there. We have seen people who are still using formulas for pay as you earn maybe for 10 years ago. Even NAPSA for 5 years ago. Why? Because they just simply borrowed a spreadsheet. So the key when it comes to payroll administration, yes, you have the people, yes, you have the policies, but the answer to most of the problems is a very good payroll software system.
Amazing. Mr. Kabanda, under a minute, maybe you can also comment.
Yeah, right. Really, it's these things we cannot overemphasize. Remember, for HR practitioners, business owners, managers, that employee who reports for work, they didn't come to play games. They have reported because they want to work and to get paid. And that's why this issue around salaries become very, very emotional at some point. And you find actually people being beaten. We have seen a lot in our many years of practice, where even HR sometimes they get to be beaten because someone somewhere did not explain certain things to the employee, and the employee now is suspicious that their money is getting stolen. So really what we can emphasize is that there should be proper communication. HR needs to be properly trained.
Amazing.
They need to know what they have to do. They need to explain things to employees so that employees fully understand what the salary will be about and what will be happening. In that way, then you have a better environment in which people are working. And if there are any challenges, companies go through different challenges. If you cannot pay, for instance, we talked earlier about the Payday and so on, engage the employees. They are human beings. They will understand. keeping quiet doesn't really help a lot because it fuels a lot of speculation. So it's important that there is industrial harmony in companies and people can then work together so that they are more productive.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Maybe we can read one or two text messages from our viewers. And the first one reads, I have a problem with my company. The contract form they gave us, there is no lunch allowance. Please, I need your help. Right now, I want to do is leave this company. Okay. Can the employer send the employee on leave, or is it supposed to be the employer to choose when to go on leave? Okay. Good afternoon, sir. Just wanted to find out when is the minimum wage is likely to start working. Good afternoon. I just wanted to find out what is going on with this government concerning salary increment, because we were promised August, but there is nothing being done. Kindly advise. Okay. You can read the last one. Okay, this one. We are hard worked. I don't know if I'm supposed to mention certain companies or
No.
Okay. So there's a company which has been mentioned. We stayed 9 months with no salaries. We need help. Okay. Good afternoon. I just want to find out about labor matters. What of the institution, like a named company, who is treating his workers differently, paying workers different salaries, despite having the same job? For gratuity, some workers have not tested it since we're employed. Others get education allowances. Others were removed. How can you help us in this situation? Union is there, but nothing is done. Maybe just this.
Okay, thank you very much. Which one can I pick? Which one?
The August.
Okay, the August one. So when it comes to the aspect of the minimum wage, okay, yes, it's the Ministry of Labor who signs the minimum wage, but it's normally in consultation with what we call the Tripartite Consultative Labor Council. This is in conjunction with the trade union mother bodies, the Zambia Federation of Employers. I'm sure the consultations are still ongoing, and in due course, the minister will sign the statutory instrument. So as it is, we do not have a statutory instrument which has been signed by the minister, hence the issue of no increments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kabanda. Your last remarks as we wrap up the program.
Yeah, so again, with all the other questions that have come through, it's really, we will forward them to the relevant authorities. But what is key, for instance, for those that have failed to get paid on time, it's a matter of the company engaging the employees. The issue about the August salary increments for minimum wage, that the statutory instruments has not yet come out. So when it comes out, then employees will be informed through the ministry, of course. Here we are consultants just discussing payrolls and salaries.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for making it possible to have this conversation. There you have it. This has been Labor Matters right here on KBN TV, channel 2790 TV, 27 Go TV 102 Topstar. If you've just joined us, please, you can go on our Facebook page. We're streaming live. You will find this conversation right on the page. I have been your host, Patricia Chilambuka. Until next week, same time, same place. It's goodbye.
Friday, the 29th of September.